It's always great to see when EA gets their just desserts. They are among the companies who are pushing for the normalization of loot boxes, which has been met with swift backlash over the past few years, not just from gamers, but also government officials who are becoming more and more aware of EA's antics and the antics of similar companies when it comes to how they monetize video games through gambling. And so countries around the world are beginning to look into updating their laws or adding new ones, or taking loot boxes and labeling it under the umbrella of gambling so that they can be regulated as if they were gambling. And chief among those countries is the Netherlands, who back in 2018, you may recall, declared some forms of loot boxes as gambling, specifically those that allow you to monetize and cash out the random rewards earned in-game. And this was back in 2018, especially where FIFA was concerned. They were very specific that EA is to remove loot boxes, but for a long time now, EA has refused to do so, and the consequences are now catching up to them. So this is a website right here that details the Netherlands Gambling Commission's deliberation on loot boxes and how the court actually sided with them and has allowed the organization to fine EA if they don't remove loot boxes, as EA has refused to follow the gambling laws set forth by Netherlands because they want to continue to sell loot boxes and pretend that they're not gambling, pretend that they're only surprise mechanics like Kinder Eggs. And so, in this article by news outlet Games Industry, the case is summarized, and right here we can see exactly how EA will be punished as a result of their transgressions. So it reads right here, EA fined 10 million euros over loot boxes as Dutch court sides with gambling authority. A Netherlands district court this week ruled against Electronic Arts in a case over FIFA loot boxes, allowing the Netherlands Gambling Authority to proceed in fining the publisher 10 million euros for violating the country's Betting and Gaming Act. The regulator said the following in an official statement: the KSA, the Gambling Authority and Commission, believes it is crucial to shield vulnerable groups such as minors from exposure to gambling. Keep in mind that FIFA is labeled as a PEGI 3 E for everyone game despite the gambling-like elements, which is just egregious. For that reason, the KSA supports a strict separation between gaming and gambling. Hell yes, gamers are often young and therefore particularly susceptible to developing an addiction. As such, gambling elements have no place in games. Amen. So basically, this right here is surprise mechanics, loot boxes, and this is Netherlands. This, by the way, is Young Surprise Mechanics, loot box shaped stress box that allows you to relieve your frustrations against loot boxes, game companies doing crappy things. On the official merch store right now, yongya.com, every purchase goes a long way in supporting the channel. But back to the matter at hand, EA of course fought back and argued and tried to make a case that loot boxes aren't gambling. So apparently EA's fine was originally imposed last October in 2019, but EA contested both the fine and the KSA's desire to reveal them to the public. The article then adds that the 3-judge panel ruled against the publisher on both fronts. So now the KSA can both fine EA and can reveal their desire to fine EA and all the details surrounding this case and why they're going against EA to the public, which of course will raise awareness, permitting the KSA to levy the maximum allowable fine of 5 million euros to Electronic Arts and a second maximum fine to Electronic Arts Swiss Sarl, and to announce them as well. Now, the way they're fining EA is interesting. Instead of taking all 5 million euros at once, they're actually fining EA every week. So, as reported by Eurogamer here, if EA refuses to make a change, EA must pay 500,000 euros per week, up to a maximum penalty of 5 million euros in fines. So, they're kind of doing this in a slow drip feed way, where every week they go after EA and take a little bit of money away until they stop this nonsense. The nonsense of violating Dutch law and implementing gambling-like mechanics in video games that are targeted at children. As for the arguments that EA made against the Netherlands Gambling Authority, according to Games Industry, EA argued that FIFA loot boxes would not count as gambling under the Betting and Gaming Act because FIFA Ultimate Team Packs loot boxes don't offer items of value because they cannot be directly converted into money, that FIFA is inherently a game of skill rather than chance, and that there is no scientific evidence linking the opening of Ultimate Team Packs to gambling addiction. Okay, first of all, there's plenty of evidence out there suggesting that there is a correlation between loot boxes and gambling. EA has been presented this evidence, and their response has been, we don't agree with the evidence. They have not presented counter evidence or anything of the sort. They've just said, we don't agree, and loot boxes aren't gambling because we say so. They're surprise mechanics. They're like Kinder Eggs. All this bullshit nobody's buying. FIFA, a game of skill rather than chance? Are you kidding me? FIFA card packs are pay to win for Ultimate Team. The more you buy, the more chances you have of obtaining the higher value, the higher skilled players, and that has a tangible effect on gameplay versus people who slowly grind for packs, who, get packs far less often, and have a lesser chance of getting those high value players. So no, it is not a game of skill when you can pay your way to bolstering your team to the highest level possible. Also, they say that Ultimate Team card packs don't offer items of value. First of all, we have to start considering emotional value. Just because something doesn't have monetary value does not mean that people don't desire a certain thing. We hear stories of kids who want to get Lionel Messi because they're such huge fans of Lionel Messi and emptying their parents' bank accounts trying to get Lionel Messi via card packs, and after spending £500 still being unable to get Lionel Messi because the game was rigged that way to have such a low probability of getting those players while hooking players to this gambling-like system that engages them in a vicious cycle of spending. It's all awful. But beyond that, Ultimate Team card packs can in fact be cashed out via third-party websites. And while they're not officially endorsed by Electronic Arts, the fact of the matter is that EA has created a platform that has allowed third parties to create their own gambling websites, and that is on EA. Fortunately, the court didn't buy any of that bullshit. The court was unswayed by those arguments, noting that there are ways for people to profit from Ultimate Team cards that can be valued at nearly 2,000 euros, and that people can ignore the proper FIFA gameplay and play the Ultimate Team packs as their own sort of game. Thank you very much. Yes, EA, they did their research, and they frickin' nailed you. The judges also responded to the claim that there is no scientific proof. According to Games Industry, the judges ruled it is not necessary that every new game of chance be proven to cause problems because the Betting and Gaming Act is based on the assumption that games of chance carry with them a risk of gambling addiction, just inherently, which is absolutely true. They also pointed to an increasing body of scientific research and experts warning about loot boxes, as well as reports made to the KSA by individuals who had been affected by them. So basically, in response to EA's claim that there's no scientific evidence of a correlation between loot boxes and gambling, the judges responded with, yes, there is. And ample evidence has indeed been presented by a number of government organizations around the world, and many of them come to the same conclusion. There is a correlation. There is a danger to loot boxes. But it doesn't end there. EA has another dumb argument to make right here. According to Games Industry, EA also argued that the KSA's decision forbidding FIFA Ultimate Team packs in their prior form violated EA rights to property and freedom of expression. Okay. Freedom of expression. That's your argument, EA? That violating gambling laws prohibits freedom of expression? Is that really the best argument you can make? So if I rob a bank, do you think I could just say, hey, I was just expressing myself robbing that bank. I don't know what I did wrong here. This is wrong. You're violating my rights. Just utterly ridiculous. Selling gambling in a game that is advertised as E for Everyone, PEGI 3, kids friendly, that is not expression. That's a freaking crime. Freedom of expression does not mean freedom from consequences. You don't get to claim I'm free to express myself and just be above the law that way. The judges agreed, and they noted that the KSA gave EA an opportunity to amend the FIFA games to fix the issue without any sort of sanction or fine, but the publisher neglected to do so. They added that EA itself still owns the game and has control over how it decides to make it comply with the law. Correct. EA is still free to express themselves, but they're selling a product in another country. That country has deliberations surrounding loot boxes and how they fit within the definition of gambling. You follow the law, and this law in particular I think is very reasonable, or you face the consequences. Apparently, EA also claimed that by limiting loot boxes, the KSA is censoring the creativity of FIFA's game designers. Really? I could very creatively pull a bank heist. Doesn't mean I won't get arrested. Same with you. Just because you believe that loot boxes are somehow creative doesn't mean that you are excused from employing gambling in video games in a country that deems loot boxes to be gambling and that has gambling regulations. In response, the court ruled again that the Betting and Gaming Act's existence assumes that the interests of society to regulate games of chance outweigh the interest to preserve people's freedom to express themselves through games of chance. Basically, if something creative harms people, that thing is still a bad thing no matter how creative it is. Serial killers can be very creative in how they murder people. Does not excuse them from doing that, because it's against the law and it's morally incorrect. Do you see what I'm getting at here, EA? Last but not least, EA also argued against the KSA's intentions to disclose to the public the fine, and this case in particular, EA argued that disclosing the fine to the public would disproportionately harm its business and hurt its reputation. But the court ruled that the public interest in announcing the fines and warning the public about unlawful commercial practices outweighed EA's interest in preserving its reputation. EA's argument was literally, but I'm gonna look bad if you disclose that I'm doing this bad thing. That's unfair. Well, yeah, that's your fault for doing something really shitty, selling gambling in games targeted at people who are not of age to be gambling, and just in general pushing for the normalization of gambling in games with a lack of transparency and really awful mechanics that offer really awful odds. Yeah, that's on you. It's your fault that your reputation is where it is now, not the judges. The law doesn't care about your reputation. The law cares about preserving the safety of people. At least that's the intention with the gambling laws. And yeah, as they say right here, the interests of public safety outweighs EA's interests, EA's corporate interests. Is this supposed to garner sympathy? You saying, but I'm going to look bad if you talk about this stuff. Yes, that's why we talk about this stuff, to make you look bad for doing this so you change your ways. EA. One last quote Games Industry's article highlighted was the KSA talking about what FIFA players should do if they have complaints about the loot boxes being removed. They said, the game's providers are the parties that decided to include a gambling game within the game, thereby breaking the law. The KSA has pointed this out to Electronic Arts repeatedly. Electronic Arts are therefore itself responsible for changing the game such that it is no longer in contravention of the law. How exactly it accomplishes this is at their discretion. So they're basically saying, hey, talk to EA about this. They're the ones who broke the law. It's their responsibility to change their game in a way that will please players while also adhering to the law. It's on them to do what's necessary to ensure they're not breaking the law. It's not up to the judges or the government organizations to babysit the companies and tell them how to do it. EA can do whatever it wants as long as it adheres to the law. As for how EA will ultimately respond to all of this, well, apparently EA has 6 weeks to appeal the decision. We do know that EA is planning to appeal, as reported by Eurogamer. It states right here, EA has said it will appeal a ruling from Dutch authorities. So following the date of the order that EA can be fined from 15th of October 2020, they had 3 weeks to change and to remove the loot boxes from titles like FIFA 19, 20, and 21. And as of the publishing of this article, October 29th, they'd have 1 week to make those changes, lest they be fined for 5 million euros, which is going to be collected weekly. But with this appeal, we'll see how this all pans out. Ultimately, I get the sense EA is fighting a losing battle. EA tried to fight the Belgian court, I remember, and tried to take this to court, but ultimately they decided to remove the loot boxes from Belgium specifically. I suspect something similar is going to happen with Netherlands. Nobody's buying their bullcrap. It's abundantly clear that EA is pushing a harmful gaming system, a harmful monetization scheme into games to make a profit, and they're making all kinds of asinine excuses to that end. EA did provide a statement to news outlets who reached out to them about this case, so this is Eurogamer's article on this matter, and apparently EA supplied the following statement to the outlet. They said, "Players all over the world have enjoyed FIFA and the FIFA Ultimate Team mode for many years, and as such, we are disappointed by this decision and what it may mean for our Dutch community." Oh yeah, I'm sure the community and the players are the #1 priority here, and not the amount of money that they'll lose from loot boxes being regulated. I'm sure that's 100% the case. We do not believe that our products and services violate gambling laws in any way. Well, then you're delusional. Well, more like willfully delusional. EA executives know exactly what they're doing. They understand full well that loot boxes are reminiscent of gambling, but they'll deny it all the way to the end because they know how much money they'll lose if they are no longer able to employ a morally deplorable way of monetizing players. We are appealing this decision, and we seek to avoid a situation impacting the ability of Dutch players to fully experience and enjoy FIFA Ultimate Team. Well, it is up to you, EA, to change the game to provide a full experience while following the law. Their statement concludes with, "Electronic Arts is deeply committed to positive play. We seek to bring choice, fairness, value, and fun to all our players in all our games." Choice? What choice? Players didn't choose to have gambling-like elements and monetization schemes crammed into sports titles to the point where they've become sports-themed casinos with a soccer game or a sports game on the side rather than an actual sport game. Fairness? When somebody can spend £500 on a video game to get Lionel Messi and still not get Lionel Messi, the odds are stacked against the players. There is no winning. There is no fairness in a system like this. Value? If somebody can spend £500 on the random chance of obtaining a desired reward and not get that reward even after spending all that money, the value is utter shite. And finally, fun. Fun. There is no joy that comes from games whose rewards loop, whose gameplay loop, whose grind were designed around enticing players to go to some shop and buy the solution to a purposely introduced problem. That is not fun. And then the last sentence reads, "We remain open to discussions with the Netherlands Gambling Authority and other stakeholders to understand and explore solutions to address any concerns." The concerns are you put gambling in your video games and people want them removed, and they should be properly regulated. And if you're going to sell gambling in your games, advertise it as a game for adults. It's very simple. Also, if you want to start making good games, build games around fun and not around gambling, and that might do you some good. There's really not much else to add here because the judges kind of nailed it. Everything they said, I absolutely agree with, and they refuted all of EA's asinine and ridiculous arguments and claims with just the best response. And I hope word will continue to spread and pave the road for more government organizations regulating loot boxes so that eventually loot boxes become such a legal and financial liability that EA will forgo them entirely, and maybe then they can actually focus on, the game and not the monetization scheme, which often takes priority over the game itself. That's why we get annualized, recycled, broken garbage. EA has become so complacent with their annual release because they make so much money off of it. It's easy money, and they want it to stay that way. And as regulators continue to look into this stuff, it would seem as though the walls continue to close in around EA and other companies employing similar types of monetization tactics, shady monetization tactics. And I'm all for it. So that's one man's take, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on the deliberation that Netherlands made in favor of their gambling regulators and against Electronic Arts and their dumbass arguments. Drop a comment, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.